All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into negotiation. And we're going to be using this book, Getting to Yes, as our guide.
Oh, yeah, this is a classic.
Yeah, it really is.
Hmm.
And it's all about, transforming conflict into opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, and this book starts out with a really fascinating story about these two villages,
Okay.
Oakwood and Willowbrook.
Okay.
And they're both fighting over this river during a drought. And, like, things get really heated.
Oh, wow.
Like, it almost gets violent,
Wow.
You're like,
It's interesting you say that because I think that's what makes the story so powerful, right? It's like this seemingly simple story about these two villages, but it really is a metaphor
yeah,
for any type of negotiation, whether it's, a personal disagreement or even, international relations.
absolutely.
And the book uses this story to illustrate the four main principles of negotiation.
And the first one being separate the people from the problem.
Yes.
That seems like it would be useful in like a really tense situation.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what the book really emphasizes is instead of, viewing the other side as the enemy,
Right.
you should try to understand their fears and needs.
Okay.
It's all about fostering empathy. Even when you're in the middle of a really heated argument,
Right.
imagine yourself mediating this village standoff.
Yeah.
You would want to get each side to see the other side's humanity, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But how do you actually get people to change their perspective, especially when like emotions are running high?
That's a great question, and that's where the second principle comes in, focus on interests, not positions.
Okay.
So instead of getting all hung up on, people's stated demands,
Right.
the book really wants us to dig a little deeper and uncover the motivations behind those demands.
Okay.
So let's go back to our villages.
Okay.
Oakwood needs the water for their crops, while Willow Creek needs it for their livestock.
Right.
On the surface, their positions are, we need the water,
Right.
but their interests are all about survival. Yeah.
About meeting their community's needs.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm trying to negotiate a new project at work and my boss is, like, resistant to my ideas,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just, like, fixating on, like, getting my way, I should, like, try to understand their concerns and what's driving their hesitation.
Precisely. You might discover that, your boss is worried about budget constraints
Oh, yeah.
or resource allocation. By understanding their interests, you can then start brainstorming solutions that address their concerns while still achieving your own goals.
Yeah.
You're not butting heads, you're working together to find a win-win.
That's a really helpful way to look at it.
Yeah.
So we've separated the people from the problem. We've identified the underlying interests.
Right.
What's next?
Well, that brings us to the third principle, invent options for mutual gain.
Okay.
So getting to yes really encourages, creative brainstorming to generate solutions that benefit everyone involved.
Yeah.
Instead of just arguing about how to divide, a limited resource.
Right. We can think about ways to expand the pie, so to speak.
So instead of just saying like, okay, Oakwood gets this much water and Willowbrook gets this much,
Right.
they could come up with like completely new solutions like building irrigation channels or, finding alternative water sources.
Right. And that's where collaboration and thinking outside the box really come into play.
Yeah.
It's about shifting from a mindset of competition to a mindset of cooperation.
Yeah.
The book emphasizes that this kind of, creative problem solving can often lead to solutions that neither party would have imagined on their own.
Yeah.
So,
I'm starting to see how all these principles like build on each other.
yeah.
It's not just about like being nice. It's about having a strategic approach to negotiation that leads to like more sustainable and beneficial outcomes.
Absolutely.
But even with like all this goodwill and creativity, how do you make sure that the agreement is fair and balanced?
That is where the fourth and final principle comes in, insist on using objective criteria. So getting to yes really emphasizes that instead of relying on subjective opinions or power dynamics,
Right.
we should use impartial standards to guide our decisions.
So in the case of our villages, instead of just like eyeballing the water levels
Right.
and arguing about who gets what, they could use like historical rainfall data or, crop yields to determine a fair and sustainable allocation of the water.
Exactly. And this applies to so many situations. Imagine you're negotiating a salary for a new job.
Okay.
Instead of just throwing out numbers, you could research industry benchmarks
Oh, yeah.
or compare, your qualifications and experience to others in similar roles.
Right.
By using objective criteria, you're not just relying on gut feeling or personal biases. You're grounding the negotiation in something concrete and verifiable.
Yeah, I can see how that would build trust and prevent resentment down the line. Like,
Exactly.
no one feels like they got a raw deal because the agreement is based on something external and impartial.
Yeah.
It's about taking the emotion out of the equation.
And it's not just about fairness. Using objective criteria can also lead to more creative and efficient solutions.
Okay.
By focusing on the data and the facts, you can move beyond positional bargaining and start exploring a wider range of possibilities.
Interesting.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about this book is it doesn't just stop at like resolving the immediate conflict.
Oh, okay.
It also dives into like the long-term impact these principles can have on like relationships and stuff.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I guess when people feel heard and respected during a negotiation,
Mm-hmm.
it like lays the foundation for future collaboration.
Precisely. And think about Oakwood and Willowbrook.
Okay.
After they, successfully resolve their water dispute, they don't just go their separate ways. They
Yeah.
actually start to build on that trust and start sharing resources and even collaborating on like new projects that benefit both communities.
So it's like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
One successful negotiation can lead to like stronger relationships,
Yeah.
even more opportunities down the line.
Exactly. And this ripple effect isn't limited to like, hypothetical villages.
Right.
Think about your own life. Have you ever had a conflict with like a coworker or family member
Yeah.
that once you resolved it constructively, it actually strengthened the relationship?
Now that you mention it, I had this disagreement with a colleague a while back about how to approach a project.
Mm-hmm.
And it was getting pretty tense, but we eventually sat down to listen to each other's perspectives
Mm-hmm.
and figured out a solution that incorporated both of our ideas.
And what was the outcome?
Well, not only did the project turn out great, our working relationship actually improved.
Wow.
We started communicating more openly, respecting each other's strengths,
Mm-hmm.
and we were able to collaborate more effectively on future projects.
That's a perfect example of how this book isn't just about reaching an agreement. It's about transforming the way we approach conflict altogether.
Yeah.
And this goes beyond just, interpersonal relationships. Imagine the potential impact this could have on entire organizations, on political discourse, even on global relations.
Right.
If we shifted our mindset from like adversarial bargaining
Right.
to collaborative problem solving.
I love that idea. Instead of seeing disagreements as threats,
Mm-hmm.
we could view them as opportunities for growth and connection.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but I
Okay.
want to make sure that our listeners can actually apply these principles to their own lives.
Right.
What are some practical tips or tools that they can use?
Well, one of the most valuable tools from this book is the concept of bâtiment.
Etienne, was it some kind of exotic fruit or something?
Uh-huh. No, not quite.
Okay.
bâtiment stands for best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Okay.
Essentially, it's your plan B.
Okay.
It's about knowing your walk-away point.
So if I'm negotiating a new job offer,
Mm-hmm.
my Etienne might be having another offer lined up, or knowing that I have enough savings to comfortably search for a new position if this one doesn't work out.
Exactly. By clearly understanding your BDNA, you can approach the negotiation with more confidence and clarity. You're not just reacting to their offer, you're strategically assessing it against your own options.
Ah.
It gives you leverage.
That makes sense. If you know you have other options, you're less likely to settle for something that doesn't meet your needs.
Exactly.
You're not desperate.
And it's important to remember that the other party also has a BTNA, even if you don't know what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So instead of assuming I know what my boss is thinking or like what their limitations are,
Mm-hmm.
I should ask questions, try to understand their perspective, and be prepared to walk away if the offer isn't acceptable.
Precisely, don't make assumptions.
Okay.
Be curious, gather information, and don't be afraid to stand your ground if necessary.
This is all great stuff, but I think it's important to acknowledge that, like, negotiation isn't always smooth sailing.
Right.
Emotions can run high, especially in difficult situations.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with that, like, emotional side of things?
You're absolutely right. Emotions are an integral part of any negotiation, and they can be both helpful and harmful. That's where emotional intelligence comes in.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't therapists or mind readers, how do we actually develop and use emotional intelligence in a negotiation?
It starts with self-awareness. Pay attention to your own emotions.
Okay.
Are you feeling anxious, frustrated, excited?
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing your own emotional state can help you understand how it might be influencing your behavior and your decisions.
So if I'm feeling super stressed during a negotiation, I might be more likely to make concessions that I'll regret later.
Exactly.
Or maybe I'll come across as aggressive.
Exactly. And It's just as important to be attuned to the emotions of the other person.
Okay.
Are they feeling defensive, enthusiastic, frustrated?
That sounds challenging.
Yeah.
How can you tell what someone else is feeling, especially if they're trying to keep their emotions in check?
It's about paying attention to their body language,
Okay.
their tone of voice, their
Right.
choice of words.
Okay.
Are they leaning forward, engaged in the conversation? Or are they leaning back, arms crossed, looking disengaged?
So if I sense that someone is feeling overwhelmed or defensive,
Mm-hmm.
it might be helpful to slow down the conversation, maybe even take a break,
Yeah.
and try to create a more supportive atmosphere.
That's a great strategy. It's about being adaptable and responsive to the emotional dynamics of the situation.
Right.
And sometimes it might even be helpful to explicitly acknowledge those emotions.
Oh, okay.
You could say something like, I sense that you're feeling frustrated. Can you tell me more about what's concerning you?
By acknowledging their emotions, you're showing them that you respect them
Mm-hmm.
and that you're genuinely trying to understand their perspective, and that can help build trust and create a more collaborative environment.
Precisely. Emotional intelligence is about creating a space where everyone feels heard, respected, and understood, even when there are disagreements.
This is making me think about how often we try to ignore or suppress emotions,
Yeah.
especially in professional settings.
Right.
But what if instead of viewing emotions as a weakness,
Mm-hmm.
we saw them as valuable data points?
That's a powerful reframing.
Yeah.
Emotions can provide insights into what people truly value,
Mm-hmm.
what their fears are, what their motivations are.
Yeah.
By understanding and acknowledging those emotions, we can navigate negotiations more effectively and build stronger relationships.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into getting to,
Yes.
I'm curious, what's resonating with you?
What stands out to me is the versatility of these principles.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just for these high-stakes business deals or international summits.
Right.
It's really for everyday situations.
Yeah.
Let's say you're trying to decide on a vacation spot with your family.
Okay.
And everyone has, different ideas, different priorities.
Right.
So how could you use these principles to find a solution that works for everybody?
Yeah.
Instead of, getting stuck in a power struggle or just giving in to keep the peace.
So could you separate the people from the problem?
Exactly.
Acknowledge that everyone just wants to have a fun, relaxing vacation. And then could you explore each person's interests and understand why certain destinations appeal to them?
Exactly. And then from there, you could brainstorm, creative options,
Right.
maybe even combining elements from different ideas
Right.
to create a vacation that satisfies everyone's needs.
Yeah. It's like that saying, the shortest distance between two people is a story.
Mm.
And by sharing our perspectives, listening to each other's needs, and working together to find solutions, we can bridge those divides and build stronger relationships.
And that's the beauty of getting to yet. It's
Yeah.
not just about getting our way. It's about creating a more harmonious and fulfilling way of interacting with the world around us.
It's almost like a shift in consciousness, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Moving from a mindset of scarcity and competition to abundance and collaboration.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. And it all starts with that simple but profound shift in perspective.
Right.
Seeing negotiation not as a battle to be won, but as a dance to be shared.
Beautifully said so, dear listener. As we close out this episode,
Yeah.
we leave you with this challenge.
Okay.
Remember the story of Oakwood and Willowbrook.
Mm-hmm.
Remember those 4 key principles. Separate the people from the problem.
Yeah.
Focus on interests, not positions. Invent options for mutual gain. And insist on using objective criteria.
Yes.
And the next time you find yourself facing a conflict, no matter how big or small,
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself, how can I turn this into an opportunity for connection, for growth, for getting to yes?
Because as this book reminds us, the best agreements are the ones that leave everyone feeling like they've gained something valuable.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, happy negotiating.